Hey guys, welcome back to Sinnoh Region. I'm Unreal Crow and this is a series where I'm recreating the entire region from the Pokemon games in City Skylines 2, bringing its cities, roads and landmarks to life in a fully detailed city building experience. In today's episode, we're expanding Oreburgh City, our fourth city in this journey, and we're going to develop its residential areas and transform an old factory district into a contemporary art hub. We'll also focus on extensive detailing, including new road markings and navigation system for the entire Sinnoh region. On top of that, we are improving biking infrastructure, refining key road connections, and completing the Oreburgh's industrial cargo station, turning this city into a major industrial hub. This episode is packed with exciting projects, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the build. So we're kicking things off with the residential part of Oreburgh City. This district will be a mix of Eastern European style buildings and Japanese style architecture blended in a way that creates a natural lived-in feel. I didn't want it to feel too much of a brand new development, but rather a town with a history, one that grew around its mining industry. The idea is that the older buildings have been here since the early days, and as the mining industry expanded, new housing was needed, leading to the construction of larger apartment blocks. I also wanted to avoid making the residential area feel too overwhelming with tall buildings. Instead, I kept the heights moderate, aiming for a more natural, human-scale atmosphere where families, workers, and trainers could feel more connected to their community and their Pokemon. To match the aesthetics from the games, I also worked on recoloring the buildings, giving them a slightly darker, more industrial look. In the original games, Oreburgh had a more muted, rugged color scheme, and I wanted to reflect that here. You'll see how the buildings evolve through a few iterations before landing on a final look. Now comes the start of one of the signature builds of today's episode. A project inspired by a comment suggesting that the parts of Oreburgh are undergoing a process of gentrification. The idea is that some of the city's old industrial buildings are being repurposed into public spaces, blending Oreburgh's rugged industrial aesthetic with a more modern and cultural atmosphere. This transformation introduces a fresh perspective on how industrial cities can be reimagined into vibrant community spaces. To bring this concept to life, I started working on an old factory complex that now has been converted into a mixed-use district, home to various businesses and cultural hubs. The centerpiece of this area is a red brick building that has been turned into a contemporary art museum, alongside a collection of cafes and restaurants that are likely to attract both locals and visitors. Additionally, I wanted to incorporate elements of the music and recording industry, repurposing some of the warehouses into clubs and recording studios, essentially creating a space that celebrates different forms of artistic expression. To ensure the area felt distinct from the rest of Oreburgh, I polished the streets, added pedestrian-friendly pathways, and incorporated a plenty of artistic elements, including decals and decorative assets from Paradox mods. The final result was a seamless blend of the old and the new, an industrial district that retains its historic character while proving a fresh, modern experience for those who visit. Whether it's enjoying an art exhibit, grabbing coffee at a stylish cafe, or experiencing the city's growing music scene, this area adds a unique cultural touch to Oreburgh, making it more dynamic and welcoming for both residents and newcomers. While working on this section of the complex, I also downloaded a new Chinese asset pack that had just been released at that time. It turned out to be quite useful as it included some great decorative elements like benches and a sleek metallic arch that really helped shape the atmosphere of the space. While I don't use these assets everywhere, I placed them selectively in spots where they felt kind of appropriate adding a subtle but meaningful touch to the area. I think these details helped further enhance the district's artistic and cultural vibe, reinforcing its role as a hub for creativity and freedom of expression. I also made extensive use of red brick textures in certain areas, which I felt complemented the aesthetic of the space. The brick net lanes provided a nice contrast to the predominantly grey area, adding a warm industrial charm that fit perfectly with the factory's red look as well. To further modernize the district, I incorporated container cafes, a concept seen in many urban spaces around the world. This gave the area a more contemporary feel while maintaining its industrial roots as well. And through the build, I focused on adding as much detail as possible to create a welcoming and dynamic space. You'll also notice a variety of street art decals sourced from Paradox mods, which add personality and depth to the district. In the end, I think this area turned into a place I would genuinely enjoy visiting myself. And if you also enjoy how this area turns out, consider hitting a like button because it really helps the video to get to more people. And if you want to stay updated on Sinnoh's progress, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next steps of this incredible journey. Overall, once the area was done, I was really pleased with how it came together, but I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of this design? Would you add anything to change it? And yeah, let me know in the comments, guys. With that, we'll be moving to our next section, where we'll be focusing on the extensive development of Oreburgh's residential district. Now, we continue expanding the residential district that we began earlier in this episode. In the first section, I focused on creating the town's historic core with smaller, low-rise buildings that reflected a more traditional aesthetic. Now I'm moving toward a more utilitarian architectural style that accommodates a higher population while still maintaining Oreburgh's unique character. I wanted to ensure that the residential area didn't feel overwhelmingly tall, especially compared to the industrial side, where the skyline is more defined by taller structures sometimes. Initially, I experimented with some panel housing from the Eastern European pack, but I found the height of it to be a bit excessive for the vision I had in mind. Instead, I opted for a mid-rise apartment blocks from the Japanese pack, which had a more suitable scale and aesthetic, while still fitting in the industrial town scene. To structure this part of the district, I arranged these buildings in a square-shaped block, forming an interesting community space. I used a repeating pattern of a long residential buildings to create the perimeter, leaving a well-defined central space, and I incorporated an interesting parking layout to complement the design. With these first two blocks taking shape, I was happy with how they blended into the city, providing a denser but still livable environment for Oreburgh's growing population. Once the apartment block was complete, I shifted my focus back to the historical part of Oreburgh and began detailing the inner yards and communal spaces between the buildings. My idea was to structure these blocks in a way that reflected how cities naturally evolve, where buildings are surrounded by main roads, but inside the blocks there is a mix of parking areas and shared public spaces. Some blocks would be more car-centric, with large parking lots filling the inner courtyards, while others would prioritize walkability with green spaces, pedestrian paths, and recreational areas. I aimed for a balance between the two, but parking was definitely a necessity. Once I placed down all these buildings, cars flooded the city, roaming in search of available parking spots. This made it clear that I needed to dedicate a good amount of space for parking, so you'll see plenty of that in Oreburgh. At the same time, I wanted to create a pleasant pedestrian areas where people could move around freely without always being surrounded by roads. Interestingly, despite initially designing a bus line to help residents get around the city, I soon realized it wasn't actually needed. Oreburgh's layout, with the main train station right in the middle connecting to the rest of the Sinnoh region, meant that most of the people simply walked to their destinations. Even after making the bus service completely free, barely anyone used it. So unexpectedly, Oreburgh ended up being a city without buses, which was a fun discovery of how City Skylines 2 AI functions. Aside from detailing the inner blocks, I also put a lot of attention into road design. For me, roads are the lifelines of the city, just like a cardiovascular system, allowing the blood, cars and agents in the game to flow smoothly from one point to another. Managing traffic, refining intersections, and ensuring proper lane markings is something I always enjoy doing. Throughout the video, you'll see me adjusting the road network, adding connections, fine-tuning traffic flow, and implementing parking solutions. While I cut out some of the most repetitive work, you'll still see me working on these details to ensure Oreburgh functions efficiently and looks a bit more realistic as well. I didn't want to dedicate all the available blocks solely to residential buildings. I wanted to mix things up a bit to bring more variety into the area. One thing Oreburgh definitely needed was an elementary school, and I thought that Eastern European style school building from the asset pack fit perfectly with the aesthetic of the town core. But rather than just plopping the school down and living as it is, I wanted to create a more complete educational environment. Surrounding the school, I designed a proper sports complex to give students plenty of space for physical activities. Since there was also a demand for higher education, I placed a high school nearby from the same pack. It is a smaller building, which worked well because in City Skylines 2 elementary education is in much higher demand than high school or university spots. Whether it is realistic or not is debatable, but that's how game mechanics work, so I had to find a way to balance it. To meet the demand for elementary schooling, I actually used a little trick, placing one elementary school building under another, effectively doubling the capacity while maintaining the same footprint. This way I could meet the city educational needs without taking up too much space. And of course, since it's a Pokemon world, I had to include a Pokemon training field next to the elementary school. I imagine Pokemon training is a part of early education here, so this field would allow younger trainers to start developing their skills. It's not necessarily a full-scale battle arena, just a smaller space where kids can begin their journey, learning the basics before progressing to more advanced training. In the Pokemon games and anime, there is no strict age restriction on what kind of Pokemon a trainer can have, but I think in more realistic world, it would make sense for children to start small and gradually work their way up to bigger, stronger Pokemon. Overall, I think the school area turned out really well. It's functional, it blends nicely into the city, and it adds more character to Oreburgh beyond just its industrial roots. After finishing up the school area, I moved back to expanding the residential district, playing around with different building styles to see how they would fit in Oreburgh's overall aesthetic. I also placed a large supermarket from a British asset pack, which worked surprisingly well in this setting. While expanding the district, I noticed a growing issue. Cars were just circling the city, desperately searching for parking, and this was causing unnecessary congestion. And I knew I had to find a solution, and a while ago I watched a video by Sinnoh, a fantastic City Skylines 2 creator whose work I really admire. He showcased a brilliant way to create underground parking without relying on the game limited parking assets. The idea is simple but highly effective. Take a wide road with built-in parking spaces, place it underground, and then use smaller roads to create discrete tunnel entrances. That underground parking still functions as a normal parking, but now it's hidden from the view, reducing surface level clutter while keeping the city a bit more realistic. I implemented this technique right below the larger apartment blocks where the demand for parking was the highest, and to make it even better I incorporated another trick using invisible pedestrian paths to connect the above ground entrances to the underground garage. This way residents don't have to walk through the vehicle entrances, and they have dedicated access points that make the whole system feel much more natural. After setting it all up, the difference was just immediate, and the endless streams of cars aimlessly looking for parking were gone, traffic flow improved dramatically, and the city felt much more functional. I really think this trick makes a huge difference in creating realistic urban environments, and I'll be definitely using it again in future builds. Big thanks to Sinnoh for the inspiration, and this approach solved a massive issue, and I can already see how useful it will be in other cities as well. With parking sorted, I could finally move on to detailing the surrounding area and bringing more life to the district. With the underground parking sorted, I moved on to refining the surrounding area, focusing on ground level detailing to give the district a bit more character. Since above ground parking still occupied a fair amount of space, I wanted to balance it with small, well-designed public spaces, something that would make the area feel more inviting and livable. To achieve this, I incorporated a long-stretched communal plaza, a pedestrian walkway paved with a red brick stone stretching across the district, which served as a central gathering space, breaking up the monotony of parking lots and giving residents a proper place to meet and socialize. I lined the walkway with flower beds and sitting areas, using a mix of available assets to create a cozy, neighborhood-friendly atmosphere. I imagined this part of Oreburgh being home to an older population with younger people living for bigger job opportunities in Jubilife City. Meanwhile, Pokemon trainers are also constantly on the move, traveling the region, collecting badges and preparing for the Pokemon League. That leaves behind a steady working class population and retirees, people who would appreciate having local community spaces where they can relax, chat, or even play a game of cards together. With that in mind, I focused on making this area feel welcoming. It's these little communal spots that give a neighborhood life beyond just being a place where people sleep. After wrapping this block up, I was really happy with how it turned out, and this underground parking blended seamlessly into urban fabric, and the passaggio gave it a much needed human touch. With this section complete, it was time for some final detailing touches before moving forward to the next phase of Oreburgh's development. After wrapping up the main detailing work, I decided to make a change to one of the most prominent buildings in the area. Initially, I have placed this Gdansk hotel from the Eastern European pack, which was a fantastic building, but I felt it was a bit too dominant for this district. It was reaching into the skyline, and since my vision for Oreburgh's residential area was to keep buildings relatively low-rise, I decided to replace it with something else. To fill the gap, I started looking beyond the Eastern European and Japanese packs, exploring the vast range of assets now available in the game. And I found these buildings from the British pack that feature a sloped, single-angled roof, something that closely resembles the architectural style of Oreburgh City buildings in the original Pokemon games. These buildings were also recolorable, allowing me to darken them slightly to match the game's aesthetic, which was a great touch. Seeing how well they fit, I decided to extend their presence throughout the city, blending them with other districts that I had yet to detail. I also incorporated some smaller buildings from the British pack, which, despite being from a different theme, felt generic enough to complement the overall look. I think they added just the right amount of variation without disrupting the aesthetic I was trying to achieve. Next, I moved on to developing a new block, which, unlike the previous ones filled with parking lots, was designed around the large public space. I placed a big playground at its core, giving children and families a dedicated recreational area, and to complete the space, I added basketball courts, fencing trees, and pathways to create a welcoming, community-oriented feel, one that I hoped would be well used by city's residents. Lastly, I added a small but important touch that I hadn't focused on earlier, a residential area for Oreburgh's wealthier citizens. While the city is primarily built around working-class families and industrial workers, I figured there would be still a few individuals who had profited from the mining industry, business owners, executives, or long-time investors in coal production. I placed their homes a bit further from the dense urban core, tucked away in a more secluded area near the water reservoir just outside of Oreburgh. A winding road cuts through the forest, leading to this small exclusive neighborhood. While I kept it simple for now, I might revisit it later to refine the area further and give it a more polished look. And with this, the residential area was mostly complete, giving a clear sense of how the city was taking shape. However, there were still some final touches needed to fully refine the look, which I will showcase in the next part. Next, I'm working on the northern connection of Oreburgh City, making sure it integrates well with the surrounding region. In the original Pokemon games, Route 207 leads from north of Oreburgh and eventually connects to Mountain Coronet. But in my version, I've adjusted the layout to better fit the transportation system of Sinnoh while still keeping some of its original charm. So Route 206 is now a major elevated highway with a railway corridor leading from Oreburgh towards Eternal City. In the games, this was the famous cycling road, a long bridge cutting through the mountainous terrain. I wanted to preserve that feeling by making this road very visible from above, stretching across the landscape in a way that stands out just like in the games. The difference is that instead of just being a bike path, it now includes train tracks and a road, making it a key transportation connection between the cities. Route 207, which starts at the northern edge of Oreburgh, now passes under Route 206 instead of directly leading to Mountain Coronet. It winds through a mix of hills and forest before reaching to the dam where it meets Route 205. In the games, Route 205 is the road leading towards Valley Windworks and Floroma town, and I've kept that concept, making this dam area a key hydroelectric power hub of the Sinnoh. The setup improves connectivity between cities while keeping some of the most recognizable elements from the games. I wanted the region infrastructure to feel realistic and functional, but at the same time I wanted to preserve that sense of nostalgia and adventure that the original Sinnoh map had. Once I finished working on the intersection, I started thinking about how this biking connection would take shape. I didn't want it to be just a simple bike lane. In the Pokemon games, biking routes often have gates or checkpoints where you pass through a small sort of building to either enter or exit the road. While I don't think you actually pay at these buildings in the games, I thought it would make sense to introduce a toll, considering that this is an elevated bike path with scenic views and well-maintained infrastructure. So I decided to build a bike toll station as a nod to that game mechanic, and I used a modular bus station asset that has a nice roof and structure, making it feel like an actual checkpoint. But I didn't want this to be just a toll booth, and I also designed this as a rest stop where bikers could have a break and grab a bite or even do some quick repairs before continuing their ride. I placed some biking parking spots, sitting areas and covered bike shelters, making it functional and inviting space. Unfortunately, City Skylines 2 doesn't have a working biking mechanic yet, so you won't see actual bikers using this road, but I'm really hoping that Colossal Order will bring it back, just like they did in City Skylines 1. A proper bike system would be great for traffic flow, reducing congestion on roads and making the city feel more alive. If that happens, I imagine this toll station could be even functional, where cyclists actually have to pay a small fee to cross that. Personally, I wouldn't be thrilled about paying for biking, but if it helps to maintain a smooth, well-kept cycling path, then yeah, maybe a couple of dollars wouldn't be the worst thing. And in general, I just really enjoyed working on this project. It's a nice break from a traditional city building and adds a unique touch to Oreburgh's transportation network. As a cyclist myself, I think I would actually enjoy stopping by this spot in real life, even if it's just to relax and take in the views before continuing the ride. Next up, I worked on implementing a new road marking system to improve navigation across Sinnoh. Since there are no built-in overhead signposts in the game, I decided to create a workaround by using ground decals to display road numbers and city abbreviations. This way, drivers can easily see where each road leads and whether they're heading towards Jubilife, Oreburgh, or any other major destination. For example, here on Road 203, you can see this blue marking directing towards Jubilife City using Jubi abbreviation along with the road number. I think this kind of system adds a layer of realism to the roads and helps visually define each road more clearly. I'm still tweaking the final format, how it's gonna be looking like, and I might do a separate episode covering the full navigation system later on. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Alright, so Oreburgh City has been booming lately and we really need more workspaces for our new residents. Oreburgh always has been known as a coal mine and heavy industry, but now the city is growing and people need office jobs too. To tackle this, we are creating a mixed-use district with office buildings and a bit of light industry blended in. This way we'll add plenty of new jobs while still keeping that gritty industrial charm of Oreburgh that it is known for. And choosing the right building style was key, and I went with these new Southwest US brick buildings for this area. They have this cozy, almost historic brick aesthetic, but still look industrial enough to fit the Oreburgh's vibe. And now we are having a little fun by adding subtle hints of Team Galactic's presence in the build. If you look closely, you might spot some graffiti that looks suspiciously like a Team Galactic tag. It's not glaringly obvious, just a little Easter egg. And check out the trucks servicing this area. A few of them are painted in Team Galactic's signature colors, blending in as a regular delivery vehicles, so only Pokemon fans will catch the reference. These details add a layer of story to our city. It's an urban district with a bit of mystery lurking in the background. This hidden outpost is a small one, but it could be tying into Team Galactic's larger plans that we'll explore in future episodes. Maybe they're here to quietly siphon resources from Oreburgh's industry or to keep an eye on the city energy supply. Who knows? For now, it's just a small detail linking Oreburgh to Team Galactic's bigger story. As we keep building across Sinnoh, watch out for these little galactic hints. They might be leading to something big in the future. I really enjoyed working on this area and I think it adds more life to the whole build. But now it's the time to move on to our final section where we'll complete the last key piece of infrastructure in Oreburgh. As we wrap up this episode, I focused on completing Oreburgh's cargo station and Railyard, a crucial part of the city's logistics infrastructure. This area acts as a transportation hub, ensuring that goods flow efficiently in and out Oreburgh's industries. The coal mines and factories rely heavily on rail transport, and this station serves as their main gateway to the rest of Sinnoh and beyond. The cargo station sits at a key intersection of Road 237 and Road 203, making it easily accessible for industrial traffic. Trucks coming in from the mines, warehouses, and other businesses can quickly reach the station, offload their cargo, and either continue into Oreburgh City or head towards the Coronet Tunnel for further distribution. The strategic location of this hub ensures smooth connectivity between Oreburgh's industrial core and the wider regional network. For this build, I used a coal rail yard asset from the rail infrastructure pack, which really helped in capturing the heavy industry feel of Oreburgh. And the best part about this asset is the coal piles scattered around the yard, giving the area a true-to-life storage and processing appearance. I also attempted to add extra coal piles manually, but I couldn't find the right props in the game. If anyone knows where to locate them, let me know in the comments. To enhance realism, I integrated grass lanes and rough dirt textures between the rail tracks and roadways, mimicking the way the vegetation grows and underused and less maintained parts of industrial areas. The result was quite organic, slightly rugged look that makes Railyard feel more embedded in its environment rather than just a clean-cut industrial space. Once all the detailing and fine-tuning were complete, this area really solidified Oreburgh's identity as Sinnoh's industrial powerhouse. The combination of rail, road, and heavy industry gives the city unique character and sets it apart from more urbanized Jubilife. Seeing the industrial district came to life with trucks, cargo trains, and workers made all the effort worth it. Now I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy how this whole area came to life. And before wrapping up this episode, I decided to revisit Oreburgh's Gym and give it some final touches. Initially when I placed Gym, it was just a standalone building with a plaza, but I felt it was missing something to truly stand out as a city iconic battle arena. To enhance it, I added clear signage and branding, making sure that everyone in the city recognizes it as a gym. In Pokemon games, each gym is represented by a badge which trainers earn after defeating the gym leaders, so I took inspiration from this idea and designed my own custom badge for the Oreburgh Gym. I think this was the final touch that made the gym feel complete and fully integrated into the city's identity. Additionally, I used letter decals to complete the look by placing the title at the top of the building. And with that, Oreburgh City was officially finished, and now we move on to our next project, Floroma Town. This charming northern settlement located just outside of Jubilife City will bring a completely different aesthetic with lush landscapes, flower fields, and a more rural feel. I think this will be a really exciting build and I can't wait to get started on it. If you guys are as excited as I am for what's coming next, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to support the series. Your feedback and engagement really help keep this project going. And with that, I wish you all a fantastic day, take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.